Good morning, everybody. If I can ask you all to please take your seats, and we will get started for day 2. I hope everybody had a nice, relaxing evening, enjoyed the social function last night. We have another gala dinner this evening, which there'll be some more information for, including the Balinese cultural performance, starting at 6:30, so I encourage you all to get along to that. But as I concluded yesterday, we had the high-level session yesterday, the lovely welcome. We heard the latest trends in forest data and what's been happening to the world's forests over the past decades. We saw that the rate of change in deforestation and afforestation, and I closed by saying that now the challenge for the group is to look at how we, as a community of forest monitoring practitioners, can continue to connect our capability, our tools, our data, our platform into the decision-making process, into the forest management process, so that we can, when the next FRA report is released, see the deforestation numbers come down, the afforestation numbers going up, so how our community can have the most impact. And to do that, what GFOI is supposed to be a relaxed technical forum for exchange and discussion. So I encourage you all, if you're wearing a jacket or a tie, you may take it off. And let's relax. I know it's cold in the room, sorry, I have to apologise for that. We have requested that the temperature be increased by a couple of degrees, but if not, if you haven't seen it, there are shawls and an entire aid station of equipment in the back right-hand corner of the room, so hopefully it's warmer, but if not, grab a shawl. But I strongly encourage everybody to relax. And let's lean into the conversation. You all have a delegate mic in front of you. We want discussion, we want engagement. The high-level session is done, we've seen the data, we now need the input and the conversation from across the community. So no question is too small, no question is too big. Please engage, please discuss. So let's get going. Now it is my pleasure this morning to pass over to Duarte Oom, who's going to be moderating the panel on forest fire monitoring. Over to you, Duarte.
Thank you, Tom. So I will not take the jacket for now, but thank you. So good morning, everybody. So I'm happy that today will not be so formal, so we can engage much more. So my name is Duarte Oom, so I'm a fire scientist. I work for FAO in headquarters in Rome. And I'm really glad to be here, so it's really important. I think it's also the first time, so I recently joined FAO in May, so it's my first time here in a GFOI Plenary. I think it's also the first time that fire is one of the topics in the GFOI, so it's really good. So it's a hot topic, let's say. So before I present the amazing panel that we have today here, but also online, I would like to give you a sort of a context to frame you the problem, also to explain why we were invited to moderate this session, and also the possible links that we have with these presentations and the work that we are doing in FAO. So recently the FAO launched jointly with UNEP, the Global Fire Management Hub. So it's a joint initiative that brings in the global platform, in the global cooperation, key players in integrated fire management, such as stakeholders, fire practitioners, fire managers, fire scientists, data providers, but also policymakers and community leaders, which is quite important. For what? To have a space, to have a stage to share their knowledge, expertise, experience in terms of integrated fire management, but also to aim to strengthen the capacity of the countries and region to implement integrated fire management in their own strategies and in their own policies, national and subnational policies. But what does it mean for those who don't know what is the integrated fire management? Let me just see, yeah. So FAO has been working in integrated fire management for a long time, and so the Global Fire Hub is just to refocus on this and promote also this transition, this paradigm shift between the traditional fire management that is more focused on suppression, on reaction, at the end of the line of the fire cycle, and to a more holistic approach, more a proactive approach that takes into account other roles of the fire, such as social, the biological, the economical, but also the cultural. So introducing also, or incorporating also, the knowledge of the traditional communities that has a long experience in fire management. So it's basically to move from a reaction to a proaction. So move from the right side of the fire cycle, that is the end, the solution, the final solution, to more prevention, preparedness, and integrated management. So to give you just a little bit in numbers in terms of context, we roughly, and this is based on satellite imagery, we roughly burn 400 million hectares each year on average. Some years we are burning more, some years we are burning less, but this is quite alarming. So, and this is number, I think, is underestimated a lot what is happening in reality, because there are some problems with the sensors, global sensors, especially the spatial resolution of the sensors that are not able to detect small fires. So the number is really, really high. And why this is so important to have this integrated fire management in the spot? Because we are facing a new normal. So what we are happening in terms of wildfire activity today, it's not the same that we have 10, 20 years ago. So we are getting a new normal, so we need to adapt. We need to have new solutions. We cannot apply the same solution that we used in the past, because it will not work, and it's proven to not work. Some recent studies mention that, on average, there was a study that was characterizing at global scale the fire regime, and they mentioned that on average, at global scale, the intensity and the frequency of extreme wildfires more than doubled in 20 years. Also, they say that there is a decreased trend in terms of global burned area at global scale. So we are burning less. But it's misleading, exactly because of that. Behind these numbers, we have, of course, it's an average number. We have, of course, places that they have the opposite trend, so they are increasing in terms of burned area, but also they hide these extreme wildfire events. So we are getting this new normal, we are getting bigger fires, more intense, more severe, more destructive, especially in the wildland urban interfaces. And we see examples, for instance, that we have in LA this year, in Valparaiso in Chile, or in Hawaii, in Canada, in Europe, for instance, in Portugal, in Greece, so with a huge impact to the communities and also huge impact in terms of economical costs. So it's really important to have to look at the statistics and to look into the trends. Also, another number that is really curious is that through satellite imagery, you know that the last 20 years, there was an increase in terms of forest areas, burned forest areas, where basically in extratropics, basically in northern latitudes, in Canada, in boreal regions, Canada, East Siberia. So carbon-rich ecosystems quite sensitive, with a huge implications, as you see. So they are having, and Canada is a good example on this, they are having frequently extreme fire events. So with the implication in terms of fire return interval, they are being shorter. So they are moving from being a sink to a source, with a lot of implications to the atmosphere. And recently, last week, I guess, there was published the State of Wildfires 24-25. I invite you also to look at this report. It's really comprehensive. They mention exactly that in 2024, basically due to the wildfires in Canada, and sorry, John, because I'm always pop up Canada, the emissions were 10% above the average for the last 20 years. Also, the WMO just reported that we broke the record in terms of CO2 in the atmosphere, also due to wildfires. So all this new normality that we are facing, of course, is climate-driven as well, some of them. So we are getting heat waves, we are getting increasing temperatures, strong winds, the levels of moisture in soil and the vegetations are getting low. But also human activity has a lot of implications on that, a lot of influence, not only because of the ignitions, but lack of management, lack of planning, lack of landscape governance, wrong strategies, wrong policies. Just before I pass the floor, yesterday was curious. I was with some results that ANSI provided, the key results from FRA, that was say something like, correct me, ANSI, if I'm wrong, more than half of the forests at global scale have management plans. I guess it was something like that. And Europe has like a huge a big percentage. So for me, it was a really surprise, because before I entered in the FAO, I was working in the European Commission, so we had a straight relationship with member states, and so we were facing with them the challenge that they have in forest management and what are the problems that they are facing. And if I can be, and today, as Tom was saying, it's a little bit informal, so maybe I can be a little bit provocative. First of all, I'm a forester, so I love forests. It's not a question. But maybe, and I would put in quotes maybe, reinforced maybe, in my perspective, as a fire scientist, some countries, I will not mention which countries, should have less forest. I will complete the sentence, not to be super provocative. Less forest if they cannot manage them. What comparison I can make, for instance, for my students, I always did this example. Imagine that you have a mansion. It can work, for instance, as a fancy car, expensive car. But let's go for the mansion. You have a mansion with 40 bedrooms, but you only use 2 bedrooms. What do you think would happen to the other 38 rooms if you don't open them, if you don't clean them, if you don't treat them? So maybe the paint will fall from the wall. Maybe the ceiling will fall. So in the future, you're going to have a lot of costs, a lot of resources allocated to recover this. The same happens with forests. What is the purpose to have more forests if you cannot manage them? Because you are creating a problem for the future. That's what's happening with the extreme wildfires. Lack of management, lack of fuel management. That the reason that we're going to have, it's what they call fire trap. It's what the suppression is doing. It's accumulating fuel for the future. Is we are seeing now, we are facing now this new normality. Also, another approach, or how to approach these problems, extreme wildfire, for instance, just to finalize, is you cannot use water. You cannot drown fires. You don't have capacity to extinguish these extreme fires. But what you do to stop them? You take the food from them. So you kill the fire, taking the food, the fuel from him. He will, of course, be really mad. He will, of course, try to strike, but slowly he will fall asleep. He will, at the end, he will stop. So starve the fire to death. Again, starve the fire to death. A little bit philosophic, but today is informal, right? Okay, but let's move on. So if not, I will continue that conversation because I'm really passionate about this topic. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we have this new normal, so we need to adapt, to have new solutions. Is what Global Fire Hub is doing, and Global Fire Hub is promoting integrated fire management through the 5 pillars. So knowledge and data sharing, also training and capacity building, talk with the communities, integrate their knowledge in the integrated fire management, which is quite important, but also integrate the integrated fire management in the policies. We held the first plenary this year in Rome. Some of you were there. So it was a very successful plenary. We had more than 600 participants in person and online. And among other things, we launched 3 working groups: fire data, interoperability, and community-based fire management. I'm leading the fire data. All of these gentlemen and institutions are part of the fire data. It's a place where we put in the same level data providers, data users, local communities, to try to level them in order to provide data that could be useful for them and that could be usable for them. So finally, I invite you to go outside if you have a chance to see it. The booth with our mascot that was launched in the plenary, PETA, or Pyra for someone, I don't know specifically if it's PETA or Pyra, depends. But you can also scan the QR code and you have more information on the Global Fire Management Hub. With this, I will stop. Thank you very much. And then I will pass to online. I don't know if Diane is online or not. Yes or no? This is no. No. Okay. This is the signal of no? Okay. Okay. So first of all, thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure to having you in this session. Also online, I know that it was really difficult for them. It's not like a proper time for some of them to present anything. So if we don't have Diane Davies, if we don't know Diane Davies, we're supposed to present firms, if some, I think some of you are familiar with firms, but we can pass to Karen. I know that Karen lost her voice, but she will be replaced, but nevertheless, I will introduce Karen. Karen, she's the founding principal of the Earth Fire Alliance, a global community-led nonprofit dedicated to providing transformative real-time data for all fires on Earth. She or her colleague Anne, probably she should be Anne, will present the fireside. So the floor is yours, Anne.
Hello, can everyone hear me all right? Thank you all so much for having us here as Earth Fire Alliance. As Duarte said, I am not Dr. O'Connor, but she unfortunately is under the weather, so I will be presenting in her place. My name is Anne Kapusta, and I'm the community organizer at Earth Fire Alliance. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and tell you a little bit more about who we are and our FireSat project. Hopefully my slides are sharing, so I will go through this.
Yes, we see it.
Wonderful, thanks. Okay, so here at this plenary, it's really important, to kind of start out grounding ourselves in kind of who Earth Fire Alliance is and why we're here. So we are a global nonprofit committed to delivering transformative data around the globe on wildfire activity, including early detection, understanding characteristics of wildfire, and then understanding the impacts and effects of wildfire. So we believe that data informs characterization, allowing us to better understand how fires are affecting the land and the forests, and not just that it's happening, but how hot it's burning and where it's going. We know that there's a balance with fires. Not all fire is bad. So understanding that we've got better data allows us to better characterize fires, that allows us to have more beneficial fire on the ground and let that burn while knowing when to suppress fires that are destructive or detrimental to ecosystems and land. And ultimately what we envision is that with better data, we can follow through this cycle and restore the balance with fire in naturally fire adapted ecosystems, while making sure that we're protecting vulnerable ecosystems from the damage of fire where it's not part of that ecosystem. So how do we envision doing this? So as I said, we're a global nonprofit committed to delivering transformative data and building what's needed as a public good service.
Anne, sorry to interrupt you, Anne. Sorry, because we're not seeing your presentation. I don't know.
Oh.
No, you are already in slides, right? You already passed some slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we are not seeing the presentation, but this is just the first one. You are not in the cover of. You already. Okay. Yeah. Now we can see it. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Anne. Sorry. Continue.
That's all right. Do you see the view of the satellite system over the globe?
FireSat system overview. It's the slide that we're seeing. Okay.
Great. All right. Awesome. Perfect. So this is the system. So as I said, we're a nonprofit, user-driven technology. So we've listened to the users around the globe and developed a system of technology specifically focused on fire monitoring and fire characterization. So this is our FireSat system. It's our flagship program as part of the Alliance. And it is a low Earth orbiting satellite constellation that will observe and monitor fires all the time, around the clock, around the globe at an 80-meter average resolution of all fire activity, but sub-pixel detection down to 5 meters. When we have the full constellation deployed, which will be by the end of the decade, we'll get a 20-minute average global revisit. So every 20 minutes, we'll get a new update on fire activity on a global scale. And we're committed to making sure that this data is trustworthy and timely. So not only will we revisit frequently, but we'll get that data down to the ground with very low false positives. And we do this by observing across 6 different spectral channels that give us information about the fire, but also making sure that we're accounting for any known hotspots or, not detecting on things like solar glare, sun glare, and things like that. It's also really important that we have multiple mechanisms of getting this data down to the ground. So we observe the data and we pass it through a high-speed downlink, and then make sure that it gets transmitted through a variety of different centers to make sure it's accessible to a bunch of different users, either directly to the front line, to data scientists and researchers through data centers, to make sure that this data is equitably accessible. So the revisit I mentioned in the last slide, we have a global average revisit of 20 minutes, and in certain latitudes, in the mid to high latitudes, we actually get down even faster at 9 to 12-minute revisit rate. And as I said, there's kind of two sides of this coin. It's both how fast that we actually observe the data and then how quickly we can get it down. And the data comes down through that high-speed downlink within minutes of observation globally. We have 5 spectral channels that we observe in simultaneously. This gives us really detailed information on what's happening within a fire. So we measure across the visible, the near infrared, the short wave, the mid wave, and the long wave, which gives us very different details about not just the fire activity, but the surrounding context in the region. So you can see these are some sample images from a NASA instrument. These are not from FireSat, but they give an idea of why it's really important to collect this data simultaneously to understand where the fire is burning, how hot it's burning, how much smoke it's producing, and then what the surrounding regions are around that. And I said the last ones weren't FireSat, these ones are FireSat. So in March of this year, we launched our first satellite in the constellation. It's our test satellite. And in July, we released our first images from that test satellite that start to show some of this dynamic change in the way that we can view fires from what's available in civil systems today. So this is an example of a very small fire in Oregon in the United States. This was a roadside fire that was less than half an acre in size when we were able to capture it. And when we looked at this, when we first captured this image, we actually looked to some of the existing systems, like the data that's in firms, to validate that this was actually a fire, and it wasn't detected on any of those systems because of the size of it. But we're able to go to camera images, like what's seen on the left, as well as some local news reports to validate that there were actually 11 roadside fires that were lit and extinguished within a very short amount of time. But this really gives us that ability to see fires when they're small and validate that that's actually what we're seeing. The second image from our first set of data shows a wide swath of area in the Northern Territories in Australia where multiple fires are burning simultaneously. And from this, you can see not just all of the active fire fronts in the midwave channel, but you can also see some of the previously burned area across these channels as well. So it really starts to give you, as well as some of the context of the land. So you can see, kind of different areas in that region and where there might be, kind of natural fuel breaks and things like that from the fire that we're seeing. So again, seeing, being able to image across multiple spectrums, and then gain a very wide view. So FireSat actually images as a 1,500 kilometer swath. So we'll see a very wide view every time that we pass overhead with all the channels simultaneously to give us not just fire activity, but context in the surrounding region. This is another image showing a forest fire in Ontario, Canada. So this was again from this summer. And this one's really interesting again for kind of showing this context of what these wavelengths can do aside from doing fire detection. So this fire was a new active fire that was burning from a region that had burned about 5 years prior to this. So not only the FireSat image in the midwave channel in the top one was able to clearly distinguish and show the active fire front, but in the longwave channel, we were actually able to see the burned area from the 2020 fire that had taken place in the same area. And then being able to really distinguish between those two different areas. So we're not just detecting on kind of old fires. We know what's the recent fire, but we know what's been burned before. So this level of insight by stacking these multiple channels and knowing this context and getting this wide observation swath gives us a lot of context and information for better management and better understanding of fire's impact on ecosystems and climate. So this last one is not a fire imagery, but it's one of the first images that we captured over Sydney in Australia. And this one starts to show the 5 bands sort of laid over top of each other and what you can see. So again, there's no fire in this image, but it starts to show the context of knowing that these wavelengths that we're collecting, while specifically tuned to fire, can also give us insights into vegetation, into fuels conditions, and into a lot of other surrounding regions for context on forest and fire management as a whole. So that's just a little teaser of what's kind of coming, but the next question is, when is that coming and how are we going to deliver this? So as I said, Earth Fire Alliance is a relatively new nonprofit. We were formed about 1.5 years ago in 2024, but there was a lot of effort and work that went into this from a lot of fantastic organizations, philanthropic organizations, to do the feasibility, collect the user needs, and develop this system so that Earth Fire Alliance could then be the nonprofit home that's sort of an equal balance between the technology like FireSat, our flagship program, but also connecting the community and really integrating in with the systems and tools and getting this data out into the hands of those who can use it to make an impact. So Earth Fire Alliance was founded in 2024. As I said, our first satellite was launched earlier this year as a test satellite for risk reduction. Our first 3 operational satellites go up mid-next year. So right around the corner, we'll have 3 satellites. Those offer a 12-hour revisit and coverage in select key regions around the globe. The initial operating capability is fully philanthropically funded, and data will be delivered to the community equitably around these kind of key fire geographies. By the end of the decade, we'll launch the rest of the constellation, giving us a 20-minute revisit. But there are stops along the way where we'll launch satellites in groups, giving us different capability. And we expect to see an hour revisit in 2028. As I said, those first 3 satellites will be focused on some key initial collection regions. And we're working with agency partners, organizations, researchers, modelers, and other philanthropies or other nonprofits in these regions to make sure that we're understanding the use cases and how this data is actually going to get delivered on the ground to better inform decisions. So we've got 3 regions in the low latency in Western continental US, Eastern Australia, and Southern Europe. And then we're doing daily collects for vulnerable ecosystems, including the Amazon, the North American Boreal, and Indonesia and maritime Southeast Asia. So I mentioned a lot that it's really important that this data gets collected, disseminated, and distributed in near real time. And so we've built a very robust data pipeline. I'm not going to go into all of this slide. It's an eye chart, but it gives an idea of how quickly this process goes. So within 20 minutes, we collect the data and deliver it in 4 key data products: hotspots, fire perimeters, fire radiative power, and fire progression, as well as single channel level 1 frames for modeling and researchers. And that all happens very, very quickly from time of collection to those data products being ready. But we know that just delivering the data products isn't the end. We have to make sure that we actually get it into the hands of the end users. So leveraging standard formats, web-based APIs, and existing systems, we're making sure that this data is put into those systems to be used as quickly as possible. So we're meeting user needs for lightweight and low bandwidth for fire operations, but robust and comprehensive for science and research, and delivering it up in some core known services like Google Earth Engine and Esri ArcGIS, as well as having it available in Data Archive for folks to access. So I'll end here with understanding that developing a global system and being a global nonprofit comes with challenges in each unique region where those who work on the ground in those regions are most equipped for figuring out how this data applies and how to make the best decisions. So at Earth Fire Alliance, we're really here to enable the end users with this new data to make better informed decisions that will hopefully transform our approach to fire management, to forest and land operations, and to research and science. In this region in particular, there are some really key challenges, and that's why it's one of our 6 initial key geographies that we're going to collect, because we know that fires burning in the peatland and tropical rainforests are very different in how they have to be managed and how they're monitored than what conditions in the Western US or North American boreal are. So a couple of those are, subterranean and subsurface smoldering fires are very, very difficult to detect with current systems. Our bands and the sensitivity that we expect to be able to detect these smoldering fires with a lot more accuracy than current civil systems today. Additionally, reignitions, so making sure that we're monitoring for hotter areas. So what I showed in some of that early data, where we weren't just seeing the active fire, but we were seeing the land changes and the heat in the land, can help us identify and monitor for zombie fires or reignitions, or low-lying fires under canopy or under, kind of tree cover. Cloudy conditions are, kind of a critical issue for a lot of current observation systems. So getting 3 early detections in rapid succession allow us to kind of see through the clouds and understand better what's happening on the ground, as well as the wavelengths that we've selected. As you saw in those kind of 5 sample ones, you could see cloud in the visible and the near infrared, and you could start to cut through that in the mid wave and the long wave. And then finally, understanding human activity and the agricultural practices for burning that are leading to some of the conditions, and being able to monitor and measure what impact that's having on the ecosystem. So again, it's really important that, these are just a few of the challenges, but that we think that FireSat will be able to address, but we'll only really learn this by working with those on the ground to understand how this data is observing the fires there, how we're creating a better repository of fires, and then what we're doing with that information. And finally, it goes without saying, we couldn't do this alone. We have some amazing supporters from philanthropies and technology partners to agencies who have already signed up to be early adopters of our data. And this list is ever growing, and we're so thankful for everybody who believes in what we're doing and is committed to making sure that this data becomes available to those around the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Karen, for your presentation. It's really a game changer with FireSat, and I'm glad that the Global Fire Hub also is participating in some initiatives that we are a part of. I think we have, thank you, Anne, and thank you, Karen, again. I think we have Diane online. Can you confirm? Yes? Diane, are you online? Yes. Okay, so let me just introduce you. Hi, Diane, sorry. Diane is the Diane Davies is the operation manager for NASA's land atmosphere near real-time capability for Earth observation, and manager for NASA's fire information for resource management system firms. Thank you, Diane, for being with us. I know that was not easy for you, but okay, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, is somebody going to share my screen, or would you prefer me to share?
I think we can share the presentation from here.
Okay. Well, firstly, my apologies for being late, but it's a pleasure to be here. Just while my slides are loading, I've just introduced myself. So my name is Diane Davies, and I'm presenting NASA FIRMS, that's NASA's Fire Information for Resource Management System, on behalf of the FIRMS team. That's not my presentation. Let's see if I can.
No, I think it's not the correct presentation. It's the one number one. It's the number one. Okay, can you see, Diane, the presentation now from your side?
It's just loading. Yes, that's the right one. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so yes, so I'm presenting firms on behalf of my wonderful colleagues at NASA, the US Forest Service, and University of Maryland. Next slide, please. Before I dive into telling you about firms, I just want to mention that firms is part of NASA LANCE, which is the Land Atmosphere Near Real-Time Capability for Earth Observation. And LANCE makes data available within 3 hours of satellite overpass. It's a virtual system that leverages existing science processing, and it was established to ensure quality, consistency, and trustability. Not sure that's a correct word. Okay, but in terms of GFOI or GFOI, it's got information that's relevant for conservation, for forest monitoring, vegetation, changes in biodiversity and impacts, and also wildfire, obviously wildfires, smoke and ash plumes, and also for disasters. And I should just say that all of the data that's available through LANCE is freely available, and all the imagery that's available is available through NASA's Worldview application and through GIBS, the global imagery system. The next chart, please. And so now moving on to firms, we have two instances of firms. We have Firms Global and Firms US Canada. So Firms Global was started at the University of Maryland in the early 2000s, and it became part of LANCE in 2012. Firms US Canada was established through a partnership between the US Forest Service and NASA, and it was launched in 2021. So both applications provide near real-time active fire data and imagery and other data that's useful for fire monitoring and fire management. Both systems use the same code. They've got the same functionality and applications, but the Firms US Canada has additional contextual data and information relevant to fire management. Next slide, please. So Firms was established, as I said, in the early 2000s, so we've got quite a long history now. It was established to get satellite data, satellite-derived active fire data into the hands of users, regardless of their level of expertise in remote sensing. So we've always aimed to make it as easy as possible to get the data. So this is, so the components include a fire map, which I will mention, active fire data, which is available, which is the last 24 hours, 48 hours, or 7 days in GIS-friendly formats. So that's KML, CSV, and shapefiles. We also have alerts, so you don't have to go on to firms to check the data. You can get an alert when there's a fire in your area of interest. That can be in near real time or as daily or weekly summaries. We also have access to the full archive of satellite data, active fire data. So for MODIS and VIIRS, this goes back over 20 years now. And we also make the data available through web services. We have a WFS, WMS, and an API so that users can pull the data and add it to their own applications. Next chart, please. So this is what the fire map looks like. This is what you'll see if you first go to Firms. And as Firms has gone on, we've added more and more data layers, more imagery layers, more ancillary layers. And so we've added these different modes that you can see on the right-hand side. And this is designed to make it easier for users to navigate the various different layers. So when you first go in, you come to the basic mode, and that will give you information about where fires are. And so that's the kind of most simple mode. When you zoom in on any of these layers and click on a fire, you'll get information about the fire, the date and time of acquisition, which satellite it was from, etc. But we also have a burned area mode, a smoke and aerosols mode, and an advanced mode for users that want to dig a bit deeper. Next slide, please. One thing that I really want to emphasize is that we have an experimental mode. So this is very much for data that we perhaps isn't quite ready for prime time. So we pride ourselves in Firms that all of the data that's available has been well calibrated, validated, documented, and is really pretty trustworthy. But obviously some data sets come online that perhaps aren't quite so robust, and yet they've still got a great deal of use. And so we're starting to put these in the experimental mode so that users understand that there may be some caveats to using that data. Next slide, please. So this is really just a bit of an eye candy chart. Well, definitely not eye candy, actually. This is just reference. This just lets you know what satellite data are available through firms. So from left to right, it's got the sensor, platform, resolution, and then the resolution at sub-satellite, and then the latency in terms of data coverage. So just to note here that there are various satellite data sources available for firms, and those in red are specific to the US and Canada. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to mention some of the recent features that have been added to firms. So firms very much works that we only add features based on user feedback. So we have a blog, which you can, there's a QR code for the blog and a short URL there, and you can read about some of the recent features that we've added. So users keep asking us if they can identify the difference between vegetation fires versus industrial or heat sources. So obviously, I'm sure Anna's pointed out that there's lots of different heat sources, and some of those natural sources include volcanoes or other geothermal activity, but there's also a lot of industrial heat sources such as mineral processing plants, gas flares, etc. And so discerning these requires some kind of analysis. So the firms team have developed a static thermal anomalies layer, and this is used to filter on those fires. And actually you can go in the advanced mode and you can turn this layer on and you can see those different other thermal anomalies which we don't consider to be vegetation fires. We've also added features to track fire progression. We've added Via's burnt area and a tool for monitoring that, which I'll talk about. We've added harmonized imagery from the EUMETSAT geostationary ring and from the harmonized Landsat Sentinel imagery, which again I'll mention. And we've added geostationary active fire data. So this has a much coarser spatial resolution, but obviously with it being geostationary, the satellites see the same area of the Earth at all times and provide these repeat observations sub-hourly, which is very useful for tracking fire progression. So just a caveat with that the pixel size is much bigger. It's 2 to 3 kilometers sub-nadir, but it increases systematically from sub-satellite towards the edge of the swath. Okay, next slide, please. So this is an example of tracking fire progression. These are the features that we've got. So once you go into firms, you can color code the fires. When you first go in there in red, if you go to the advanced mode, you can color code them to look at FRP, confidence value, also by time since detection. So that allows you to monitor how the fire has progressed. And there's also a sub-daily function timeline. So at the bottom of firms, you'll see there's a daily timeline. You can switch this to sub-daily, and then you can filter to just track every 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you're interested in to see how those fires have progressed. And then on the bottom right, there's an example of some VIA's modeled fire perimeters. These are from our experimental tab or experimental mode. So these we thought aren't really ready for prime time because they're still being developed, but they are useful for people because they provide updates on perimeters for every 12 hours. But that's just available for the US and Canada. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we've added some additional imagery layers. This is in an effort to provide additional geostationary imagery. We've pulled in this from EUMETSAT. This is a composite from 5 geostationary satellites, and it's updated every 3 hours. And it provides, it's called a geostationary natural ring, but it's actually a false color composite, but it shows healthy vegetation in green, burn scars in reddish brown, and you can also detect smoke in white, grey or light brown. Okay, moving on to the next slide, please. These are some of the other additional layers that we've got in firms. So this is an example from the mosquito fire in California in 2022. Top left, you can see this is a cumulative fire. So here we've pulled in the fires for 3 weeks. On the top right, you can see the HLS. This is the false color composite, and the burnt area you can see shows up in red and brown. That's a 30-meter resolution product. And then you've got normalized burn ratio on the bottom left, and normalized difference in moisture index in the bottom right. So these bottom two are pretty new to firms. We've added in these various indices. There's you can also customize your own indices if there's something else that you're interested in from the HLS imagery. So HLS, just to recap, is from the Landsat OLI imager. So that's the operational land imager, and from Sentinel, it's the multispectral instrument on board Sentinel 2A and 2B and 2C. Next chart, please. So we've also, users wanted to be able to understand which areas burn year after year and which areas burn at the same time of year. And previously in firms, we just had 1 year's worth of burnt area product. But now you're able to compare and contrast 3 years of data. So you can look by month, you can look by year, you can color code the files, whatever you want to do. And so this, and also we've added in the VIA's burnt area, which was made available in October 2024 and goes back to 2012. But with the MODIS record as well, which goes back to the early 2000s, sorry, late 2000s, we have over a 20-year record of burnt area, which is really useful for kind of understanding repeat fires and which fires are burnt. Perhaps users are interested in looking at recently burnt areas and recent fires, and then which area has burnt adjacent to that in the past, so you can see which areas are more susceptible to fire. Okay, and then moving on, we have users of firms in over 200 countries. This is just one example of how firms is used. This is from InjiWatch. There's a nice article written up here in the NASA Earth Data website. Here, firms is used as one tool to protect different assets from InjiWatch customers in Australia and the US. Next slide, please. So as I said, firms is used by users in over 200 countries. It's used by individuals who want to know where fires are occurring, to regional and national agencies who use firms as one of their in their toolbox for situational awareness. It's also used to monitor things like explosions or fires in the Russia-Ukraine war, also for humanitarian monitoring. So we have a wide range of users and a wide range of visits. In the last 12 months, we had 3.4 million unique users to firms and over 15 million views. But through our API and web services, firms' data are also redistributed to a lot of other platforms, such as Google Maps, Esri, and the European Fire Information System and the Global Wildfire Information System, as well as other local and regional systems. Moving on, next slide, please. Just a few things that are coming soon. So we're planning to add in the Meteosat 3rd generation FRP product, which we're very excited about. So this is available now in test, but we will be adding it in once the government shutdown is over. We're not allowed to add it in at the moment. So this will provide 1 kilometre resolution at nadir, and it will have it will be updated in around every 20 minutes. So the temporal frequency is every 10 minutes. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. And then we'll also be updating our protected areas layer and adding in an ecosystems layer, as this is something that other users have requested. And we also have a statistics portal that's in beta version at the moment. So this will be used to track fires and burnt area between years. So you can see whether or not it's a normal year or whether it's an exceptional year. And then my last slide, I just wanted to draw your attention to some NASA training that's taken place. So earlier this year, we did some training on using NASA's Earth observation data through firms for wildfire monitoring and management. We had a training in English and Spanish, so you can go to those QR codes if you're interested and learn more about that. And then we have another training coming up in November. So this will be advanced, slightly more advanced, using firms for active fire monitoring, smoke and post-fire monitoring. So that will include some Python, as well as using the normal tools. And next slide, that's my last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you so much. It's very impressive and comprehensive presentation. Every time I see a presentation from you, you add some other tools, so it's impressive the way that you update the system. Just pointing out that this NASA firms, long time ago, was initially developed in collaboration with FAO, but yeah, long time ago. Thank you once again, Diane. So the plan of this session was to present two global data sets that could be useful for even for countries that don't have any kind of system. So we have FireSat and also firms. Now we're moved to the national perspective, to the regional perspective, and the first one will be the last one online. Gaston, I hope that you are online. Gaston Tahintsoa is a fire remote scientist working at the Research Lab Land and Development, but also in the Research Lab Regional Eastern Africa Fire Monitoring Research Center in Madagascar. So welcome, Gaston. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Duarte. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And do you see my slides?
We can see your slides as well, the first one.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Antananarivo, the capital of Madagascar. I am Gaston, and it's a great honor to be here at this GFOI Plenary to share the ongoing work of Regional Eastern Africa Fire Management Research Center, where I work as a fire remote sensing scientist. Across East Africa, we are witnessing a troubling rise in both frequency and severity of wildland fire. This increase is driven by several interlinked factors. Firstly, most countries still lack sufficient firefighting equipment and trained personnel. We can also notice frequent droughts worsened by climate change that heighten fire risk. The consequences are severe and multifold, like loss of biodiversity, carbon emissions, and the gradual transformation of dense forests into open savannas. This modest satellite imagery illustrates the global distribution of active fires in 2019, showing how East Africa remains one of the hotspots of recurring fire activity. To make this more tangible, let's take a look at this example of Bailey National Park in Madagascar. In 2024, that park experienced a large wildfire that devastated critical habitats. The amount total of burnt area represents nearly the quarter of the total surfaces of this park, where is it the only natural home of the Angonuka, one of the rarest structures in the world. Such fires not only destroy ecosystems, but also endangered species found nowhere else on the earth. The second one is the MENA protected areas in Madagascar also, a dense dry forest, rich in biodiversity and ecological function, who is being lost to repeated fires and the land use change by slash and burn activities. This transformation highlights why robust fire monitoring systems and community engagement are essential. In response to these growing challenges, the Regional Eastern Africa Fire Management Research Center was established in October 2020. It is hosted by the Landes Research Lab at the University of Antananarivo in Madagascar. Our center serves dozen countries across sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in the Eastern Africa region. Our mandate is to provide, archive, and interrupt scientific and satellite-derived data on landscape fires and to decentralize the role of a global fire monitoring center. This decentralization enables us to adapt response to local, national, and regional level. We operate on an online platform with the following link. that aggregates kids' data sets for fire monitoring and fire risk management. Our activities focus on three main components. Firstly, the daily fire danger forecasting. The second, nearly time active fire detection. And the last one is monthly and annual burn area assessment. Our daily fire weather index forecast is based on the Canadian fire weather system using remotely sensed weather data processed through Google Earth Engine. In Madagascar, this system has been running operationally for 5 years. We forecast shared via social media, WhatsApp groups, our geo portal, and even through local radio for community outreach. This communication approach bridges the gap between scientific data and local action. We also rely on NASA's firms, which delivers daily active fire alert using MODIS and FIR satellite data. This system supports early detection and tracking, enabling local communities and protected area managers to react quickly, often prevent small fires from becoming large disasters. For post-fire assessments, we use Sentinel-2 imagery at 20-meter resolution to map burn areas on a monthly and annual basis. This allows us to evaluate fire damage, guide restoration priorities, and identify optimal location for fuel breaks and fire breaks. This service covers all Eastern Africa countries from 2016 to today, providing a rich time series for regional analysis. Despite these advances, several challenges remain. Firstly, we need to refine the fire weather index algorithm to better suit the diverse climatic and ecological conditions of each country. We need also to integrate topography and land cover data that will improve considerably our ability to model fire spread. There's also a clear need for stronger communication strategies to ensure that early warnings reach out local communities in time. We need also to enhance cooperation among countries within the regional and international region levels aimed at knowledge transfer, sharing technology, expertise, and data exchange in fire management. We see here a drone imagery taken in the border of a national parks in the northern part of Madagascar that show how different landscape react to fire. Like Duarte has told during his intervention, forest is really affected and destroyed by fire, in contrast of croplands where we see no fire. We can conclude that landscape management is the key. Involving the local community can create a landscape more resilient of fire. To end, I invite all to visit our two websites, the RFMRC EA and the LabDev Research Lab. And for any questions, more information or collaboration, please contact lab_landdev@move.mg. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Gaston. It's really important, the work that you are doing, and also you show how you can complement local data with global data, for instance, from firms. Thank you so much. So here we finished the online presentation. So I would like to thank all of you three that you were in online. I know that was a challenge for you, but we made it. So thank you, Gaston, once more. So now we pass the floor to John Little. John Little is the Fire Information Manager from the Natural Resource Canada Wildfire Intelligence and Predictive Service. So the floor is yours.
Okay, well,
Thank you. It's good to be here. All right. Yeah, as Duarte mentions, I'm a data and fire information manager with Natural Resources Canada, Canadian Forest Service, and I have a background in GIS and data service development, and I work to plan, develop, and manage data products for the Canadian Wildland Fire Information System. Also, I work on the development and integration of national data standards to support wildland fire information sharing in collaboration with fire management agencies across the country. And I'm here to present the Canadian Wildland Fire Information System. Now, the website is just the tip of the iceberg. It's built upon a vast collection of data products and services managed through a data catalog. And these services are considered critical resources for reporting on national wildland fire in Canada. So, given this is an international conference, plenary here, I thought it appropriate to provide a little context, a brief overview on the forests and fire management in Canada. So Canada's forests make up about 9% of the world's forests, about 367 million hectares. This includes both managed and unmanaged forests. About 75% of the forest area in Canada is boreal forest, and wildland fire is obviously a natural disturbance in the boreal. 90% of forest lands in Canada is owned by 13 provinces and territories. Forest management falls upon the provincial jurisdictions, and about 10% of forest lands are held by Indigenous communities. Canada's wildfire management system has 4 tiers. The provinces and territories deal with fire suppression, fire management, risk mitigation, and emergency response. The federal government, which is where I sit, deal with national emergency management, fire research, technical expertise, and support for national reporting and public safety, as well as handling international agreements. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, or CIFC, provides support and coordinates resource exchange. And the Canadian Council of Forest Ministers manage collaboration on forestry-related matters and provide strategic and policy advice on national fire management issues. Also, Indigenous peoples play a critical role in fire emergency management. Indigenous governance is autonomous from provinces and territories, and traditional knowledge and cultural burning are tied to First Nations. A quick note on wildland fire trends and impacts in Canada. Wildland fires are increasing in size and intensity. Annual costs for fighting wildland fires totals around 1 billion Canadian dollars per year. Canada's wildland-urban interface is growing. Canada has more than 32 million hectares of interface areas. Wildfire has a tremendous impact on people. Tens of thousands of people are evacuated each year due to wildland fire and smoke, affecting physical and mental health, damage infrastructure, and economic disruption. And demands on resources are often beyond national capacity. National and international resource sharing is an annual requirement, so thank you to all of you nations who send resources to Canada in busy fire years, so thanks. And Indigenous and remote communities are at great risk. 80% of Indigenous peoples live in forested areas. Oh. Next. Oh, there. Okay. So in Canada, about 6,500 fires burn each year, and burning about 3 million hectares, according to the National Fire Database. As you can see from the bars on the chart, there's a large variability in year-to-year area burned. Also, a very small number of large fires are considered greater than 200 hectares, are responsible for most of the area burned. About half of fires are lightning caused, and these account for about 90% of the area burned. There. So over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been working to improve how data is managed under the hood of the CWFIS. The Canadian Wildland Fire Information Framework is now the platform that manages, stores, and serves all the integrated fire data to support the Government of Canada's role in providing information, as well as supports fire research and development. The framework is cloud-based, resilient, and reliable, built on service-oriented architecture, and focused on standards, interoperable data sharing. The graphic at the bottom shows data flowing in from a vast number of data sources and managed within the framework to transform into standards-based data services, which are delivered to a range of users, both public and non-public. The Canadian Wildland Fire Information System website is one of the clients of the framework, and it's public face of the data held within the framework. The website has been around since about 1995 and provides national wildland fire information and data services to the range of clients, including public and emergency management partners. The information displayed on the CWFIS is delivered as public data services. So weather is collected from about 2,500 weather stations across Canada, US, and it's used to produce current and forecast fire weather and fire behavior maps, outputs from the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System. Seasonal and monthly forecasts are produced at the beginning of each month throughout the fire season, March through September. And reported fire locations are collected from fire management agencies across Canada and based on standards that we've developed with those agencies. In addition, satellites are used to detect active hotspots and derive burned area estimates as pulled in from a variety of sources. Also, a national situation report provides an overview summary and prognosis of fire conditions throughout the fire season. Here's a sample animation just showing some of the types of information that we have available through the website. Reported fire point data provides agency attributes, information about the fire specific, and the satellite detected hotspots show the active fires, and the hotspots are used to derive perimeter estimates. And over time, these can be used to show the burn progression. And upon the end of the season, agencies will provide more detailed burned area maps, and they're produced using GPS, aerial, or satellite sources. And the more detailed data about each fire event and area burned is made available usually by the following spring of the next fire season, and made available through the National Burned Area Composite and the National Fire Database. So the CWFIS is a very popular website, millions of users through the fire seasons. So we've been working on redeveloping the website based on needs and requirements gathered from user surveys and engagement. New CWFIS 2.0 will be available our next fire season, so in the new year. And the new landing page will provide a quick snapshot of the current conditions and provide easy access to more information, each with new features and functionality. So there's a number of different sections that are available, but I won't go through each one of those. I'd like to highlight the new data catalog, which will provide the vast collection of metadata, ensuring interoperable data services are findable and accessible. So here's a list of the data themes and associated data services. All the services are available through OGC standards and available as downloadable files. The fire behavior services include inputs and outputs for the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System. The fire mapping and monitoring data products focus on fire locations, fire perimeters and burned area, satellite detected hotspots, remote sensing imagery, and other wildfire monitoring data sets. The Wildfire Sat constellation, which is planned to launch in 2029, will have data products included here in the framework for fire monitoring in Canada. Fire impacts data products focusing on the impacts of fire, including smoke and air quality and evacuations due to wildfire. Forest and fuel characterization products provide more forest attributes and fuel types. And fire risk and fire occurrence prediction products are not publicly available, but we're working on developing more products for those. Also, wildfire intelligence and predictive services are included, more specifically focused for delivering services for fire management agencies. And these include research and development, the development of operational tools based on CFS science. For example, we're working to develop improvements on our seasonal forecasting right now, as well as changes to the fire weather index system, which will move from daily weather inputs to hourly weather inputs. The support services are in the form of knowledge exchange, mutual aid, fire growth modeling for agencies. Meteorology services include weather briefings and seasonal fire weather forecasting, and data information services focus on products being developed for the CWFIS website. Now, looking at a quick note about some challenges associated with reporting and fire monitoring conditions. The integration of fire data from 13 different provinces and territories comes with some challenges. That being, each agency has different ways of providing their data, different attributes, different values, as well as different formats. So we work together with the agencies to develop national standards and address these challenges through a common national working group. Also, issues with other data sources, aging satellite sensors, other challenges with availability of other data products require a degree of risk management. Also, addressing user needs and requirements, and adopting new science and technology, working with AI, for example, poses both challenges and opportunities. Finally, the nature of federal, provincial, and other intergovernmental relations require good working relationships, which we work hard on maintaining through collaboration and engagement. So that is it there. And I just wanted to close by thanking our hosts and organizers for this plenary. The event and the initiative set up to help advancing the international collaboration and improvement to access to fire data platforms and tools will surely have great benefits. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, John. It's impressive the system that you have, and so mature with so many tools that you have and information. And also it's good for the Global Fire Hub because Canada is one of the main sponsors, so we have a straight collaboration between us. So the next speaker, and I will appeal your ability to synthesize, sorry. I think we have some credits in our organization, so we can expand a little bit more. The next speaker, it's Alencar. Some of you already know her. So she's the Director of Science at the Amazon Environmental Research Institute in Brazil, and also the coordinator of the Cerrado and Fire Monitoring Initiative within the Mapbiomass network. And thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I will try to be fast. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with these colleagues and the ones online and with you all. Yesterday I talked a little bit about me and Mapbiomass. So I belong to an institute called Amazon Environmental Research Institute, which is an NGO, an independent research institution in Brazil. But IPAM is part of a network called Mapbiomass, which is a network that was conceived in 2015 to produce land use data maps with local knowledge. And this is the main. Today, Mapbiomass has different products besides the land use map. One of them is Mapbiomass Fire. So I'm gonna present to you. I have, okay, next. Okay, what is the purpose of Mapbiomass Fire? Well, Mapbiomass Fire was conceived to produce these burned area maps for Brazil. At that time, in 2015, we didn't have comprehensive maps of burned area for the country, and we had and we still have a very good system from MIMPI that provides the active fire data. And we actually needed that to be able to understand all the fire dynamics and impacts, mostly in the Amazon forest, which is my field area of expertise. So from 2015 to now, we created 2 products, and I will be talking about them a little bit and presenting some results. So we basically used map burned area using Landsat family satellites and Sentinel-2, and we produce annual, monthly, cumulative burned area frequency, size, patch size, and time since last fire as a product. So Mapbiomass Fire has 2 products. One is what we call the collection, is the annual data set that we release every year. We reprocess the entire data set every year because we are looking for better accuracy at every collection. And we do have a fire monitor product, which we release every month. Up to like 10 days after the month closes, we release the data set. So it's not a real-time data set, but it's a new real-time data set. This is the timeline of our product. So in December 2020, we released the beta collection with just 20 years of data. And then in August 2021, we released the first collection. In August 2022, we dedicate our team to produce the fire monitor. So we just updated 2021. And then from there on, we are releasing a new collection every year. This year, we released collection 4 with the half, which is also a report that is like a state of the art of the fires in Brazil. We keep producing the fire monitor. I think it was released last week, the data of September 2025. And in 2023, we came here to Indonesia. Indonesians went to Brazil, and led by Auriga, which is a local NGO as well. They produced the Mapbiomass Fire Indonesia. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was the release of Mapbiomass Fire Paraguay, and next week we are going to release as a network the Mapbiomass Fire Peru. So other countries in South America have already been trained, and probably next year we will have the entire South America with Mapbiomass Fire as well data. So the way we do it very quickly, and I think this is, we tried everything in the beginning because we wanted to be an operational data set, and for the Amazon, for example, we know that optical data sets have lack of information due to clouds, and Delta NBR sometimes is difficult because you don't have enough observation, so you lose the track of the fire scar. So we just used the minimum NBR. We got all the data in that year, and we got that pixel that has the minimum NBR in a year, and then we got all the pixels and made and create a new mosaic, which is an annual mosaic. And doing that, we are able also to retrieve monthly data, fire data from the Landsat afterwards, anyway. So we did this using deep neural network models, which is like a deep machine learning. And we used INPI data set just to just to help us as a reference maps to indicate the areas that had more fires and so on. We produce the data, we create all accuracy for the data, and we'll make it available. So some results from the last collection, we know that more than 200 million hectares were burned in Brazil in the past 40 years. This represents about 24% of our territory. By getting what Duarte said, not all this fire is bad, some of the fire is good. Most of them are actually, most in the Amazon are bad. But with this, we can have a look, first look of the fire situation in Brazil. And one thing calls my attention, which is in Brazil, we have about 60 to 70% of our entire territory is native vegetation. From these, about 78% are fire-sensitive ecosystems, mostly like forests, like Amazon forest, Atlantic forest. The fire-sensitive ecosystems mean that they shouldn't burn, or the fires are very rare events, every 200, 1,000 years. But as you see in this chart, the Amazon represents 42% of all the burned area through time, since we can monitor 4 years, which means that this ecosystem has been severely threatened by fire. This is not to go deeper on this, but just to show that climate change is impacting a lot this scenario. And we see that from all the main ecosystems in Brazil, and the upper corner, we see the Amazon there, 2024 was extremely high in terms of burned area. We had more than, I think, 70 million hectares burned just in the Amazon, 30 million in entire Brazil. And in average, we have about 18 million hectares burned every year. So Canada was 3, is 3 just forest, 3 million in forest, or 3 million total? Total, yeah, we have 18 in average. So it's a lot of fire. As I said, some of them are not bad, because we do have 23% or 25% of our territory are fire adapted or dependent ecosystems, such as savannas or grasslands. This is the type of data that we can retrieve with this annual burns, like we have fire frequency. With this, we can see that really the Amazon is in a bad shape in terms of fire. We would expect, as fire scientists and ecologists, to see a curve just like Mata Atlântica there, when you have just one fire one occurrence of fire very high. But no, in the Amazon, we are seeing like the same curve of, for example, the Cerrado, which is a savanna, or the Pantanal, which is a grassland-dominated ecosystem. So something is very wrong is happening in the Amazon regarding to fire. With this data set, we can also retrieve burned area by land cover. And we see as well that while the other ecosystems or biomes in Brazil, they are the fires are actually happening in natural areas, which is in green, in the Amazon and in the Mata Atlântica, which are forest ecosystems. They are mostly happening in planted pasture and agricultural fields. So, which means that people are managing fires, and these fires are escaping to surrounded forests. With this data, we can also retrieve the time. So it's from Landsat, but we can retrieve that. We know that most of the data, the fires happening between August and October, and with a peak in September. We can also retrieve the size of the patch, so we can get over the years how patches are changing. And I didn't bring this just in general, but really patches of fire size is changing, which is a very important indicator of changes in fire regimes. We can also assess the time since last fire, so we can see the fronts of the fires, and we can see how this is getting into the Amazon. So this is also a very good and important information. Just trying to go fast here. And these are just the 2024 hot areas or heat map of forest fires, just forest fires. And you see that the Amazon dominated that in 2024. Going to the Amazon here, we see all the main patches in some of the areas, and some of them are indigenous lands. And we see, compare the pizza of burned area by land covered compared with the average from the 40 years, and we see how forest was affected by fires in 2024 due to the huge severe drought that we had in almost all the country. Well, all this data set is available in different formats. We have a platform, actually 2 platforms. We have toolkits that are available. We have plugins for Quantum GIS. We also have infographics, fact sheets, and an annual report. Just to finish, this is, I think, is the last one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. It's amazing the work that we've been doing, and also it's really important to this transboundary application that of Mapbiomass is applied in other countries. So thank you so much. So I invite you to stay a little bit more, because now we have someone that is probably familiar with you. Israr Albar is the Deputy Director of the Forest Fire Management at Ministry of Forestry, Republic of Indonesia. Israr, the floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Duarte. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Israr Albar from the Directorate of Forest Fire Management, Ministry of Forestry, Indonesia. I experienced for the fire management in Indonesia for at least 25 years. It's a pleasure to be here today in Bali, the island of the gods, at the GFOI 2025 session in Bali, here, to share Indonesia's experience in forest fire monitoring and management. Forest and land fires remain one of the Indonesia's biggest environmental challenges. Our management strategy focuses on 3 key pillars. The first one is the prevention, the second one is operations, and forest fire management. In prevention, we strengthen regulation and coordination, develop early warning system, promote land preparation without burning, we call it the PLTB, and build community awareness through campaigns and capacity buildings. Presence enforce ground and air operations, including Manggalakni fire brigades, interagency collaboration, air operations such as waterbombing and air surveillance in Indonesia. The post-fire management includes law enforcement, burn area estimation, that's already mentioned also by Anne, and inventory, as well as continuous monitoring to prevent occurrences. Yes. Indonesian forest fire monitoring has come a long way. Back in 1997, information was shared manually through radio, fax, email, and by 1998, we began receiving satellite from data from NOAA. I think it's about NOAA 12 and NOAA 14. In 2006, we expanded the include ground station in Jakarta, integrating satellite imagery for near-real-time hotspot detection of active fire. Then in 2016, we relaunched Sipongi, our national forest fire monitoring system, and by 2019, Sipongi became fully automatic, offering both public and internal access. It's also integrated social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, now X, and later Instagram to make data more accessible. This makes Sipongi a truly modern real-time early warning and reporting system. Here's the Sipongi. Today, the Sipongi, we call it the Sipongi Plus, integrates hotspots from Terra, Aqua, NOAA. We have a NOAA 12 and NOAA 21, and SNPP Suomi. This makes Sipongi a truly modern near-real-time early warning and reporting system. So I think these systems also adopted by some provinces in Indonesia, as well as the agencies. These portals include, we call it portal because we don't need to say it's only the websites. It includes the weather forecast, weather levels, groundwater level, and this makes Sipongi a truly modern, near real-time early warning and reporting system. Available mobile apps for iOS and also Android to make it handy. Currently, Sipongi support over 2,500 users, including Manggala-Agni, our fire brigades, provincial and district disaster management, forestry units, national park, private company, as well as local communities. We established our Manggala-Agni, we call it Manggala-Agni for our fire brigade since 2002 and 2003, and now it's operational across Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi with 34 local fire stations. We really need this local fire station become the center of excellence for our fire brigades. We also have the workshops and almost 2,000 fire brigades Manggala-Agni personnel at each local fire stations. In 2022, we launched another important innovation, the Forest and Land Fire Prevention Patrol Information Systems. We call it SIPKA-HUTLA. This is another innovation. Learning that we have to report a lot of documents. So we collaborate with the IPB University to develop this system. It's a mobile and web-based system that allows patrol teams to collect and manage field data directly during their activities. We also have the online reporting for the company, so they can report for monthly and also annual reporting, as well as incidental accidents if they have like the fire occurrence in their concessions. Now we recorded almost 1,700 companies that reported in our systems. This strengthens early detection and coordination between the ground patrols and the National Monitoring Center. Here's we can see the examples of from NASA and Sentinel imagery, massive fires in 2015, 2019, and 2025 in regions like Jambi, and then Riau and Kalimantan. You can see here, like the right side, this is the phenomenal forest fire in Jambi. So we can monitor from satellite as well as from the ground stations. And then you can see here the yellow thick haze, yellow thick smoke. That's the haze from the peatland fire. This image highlights how hotspot and haze detections from satellites have become critical for early response and international transparency. From 2015 to 2025, the active fire data show clear peaks during El Nino years, 2015, 19, and 23. These periods brought a prolonged dry season, triggering extensive fires and haze. We continuously monitoring this condition to anticipate the future risks. We also monitor air pollution and has a movement using data from SMC, ASEAN Specialized Monitoring Center in Singapore, and BMKG. This is our meteorological agency, combined with satellite imagery from NASA as well as Sentinel. This helps us coordinate our boundary has responses with neighboring countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and so on. The fire danger ratings are now available through the Spartan system developed by BMKG, our meteorological agency and ASEAN partner. We developed this system since 2002 with Canadian Forest Service. John is here, so some of his colleagues also, colleagues of mine, developed this fire danger rating system for Southeast Asia, and then we also adopted for Indonesia. This system helps predict areas at risk of fire up to 7 days ahead. So you can see here that for the FWI, Fire Weather Index observation for ASEAN, we can predict for October 26, and another sample is the Fire Weather Index prediction for Indonesia in 19 October 2025. Every year, we produce an updated forest fire prone map at scale of 250,000. This helps local authorities like province and district to focus their prevention efforts where it matters the most. Burn area monitoring. So I think for this morning, we discussed a lot about the burn area. We do it with Lancet and Sentinel imagery, as well as the EPAM. And then we cross-check with field validation and Simpongi data. Here is the word burn area using MODIS, monthly global burn area with MCD 64A. And we can see the different number for Indonesia, 4 million compared to 1 million in 2012, and 1.2 million to less than 300,000 in this year, at least until September 30. So we do the monthly burn area for Indonesia using the Lancet and also Sentinel. And the last data that we have is 200,096 hectares. Here's the the trend for the Indonesian cases for the burn area. So the major fire years, 2002, 2006, 15, 19, and 23 are closely linked to El Nino events, which cause prolonged dry seasons. For example, in 2015, over 2.5 million hectares were burned, and then about 1.6 million in 2019, and these 2 consecutive years, majority occur in Sumatra and Kalimantan. But also when we have the pandemic period in 2020 to 2022, we have also the big fire in Nusa Tenggara, both West Nusa Tenggara and East Nusa Tenggara. Yes. This year, as I mentioned before, that's as of September 2025, we lost less than 300,000 hectares that have been affected by fire, with most fires occurring between July and September. So in this July to September, the occurrences of the burn area is about 92%. So you can imagine for the first September, we only lost, let's say, 8 to 9% for the whole period. If we look at the monthly burn area, at least for the last 8 years, we may see that forest fire in Indonesia started in July or August and will be declined about November. So this graph clearly give us the information that actually the forest fire in Indonesia is not, as mentioned by John, lightning cause, but Indonesia, let's say 99%, particularly in peatland, that's the human cause, anthropogenic. So actually, we don't say that the forest fire is a disaster because we know exactly the time, the period, and also the place where the fire will start every month. So this is Indonesian fire cycle. Typically start with a pre-crisis phase early in the year, where Riau and West Kalimantan, as you can see in Riau, there's Dumai district and Bengkalis, and West Kalimantan in Sanggau district started fire, followed by a crisis phase during June to October. That's the peak of the dry seasons. After that comes to impact evaluation. Understanding this cycle help us plan patrols, allocate resources, and prepare for the high-risk months. And then here are a few snapshots from this year, 2025, in Riau, Jambi, West Sumatra. There's our Mangalagni Fire Brigades and local agency work tirelessly to suppress fires in peatland areas. I think there's a Diane mentioned about the peatland in her last slide. So we have the problem with the peatland fires because it's the underground fire, so it's not easy to suppress this fire. 2023 in South Sumatra, in Jungkar area, we have to stay there for 67 days to suppress only in one location. So you can imagine how heavy, how difficult to suppress the fire in peatland fire. We also, with my colleagues in NOAA and NASA, we try to trace how about the active fire in the peatland in 2023, and we conclude in our analysis that sometimes it's 2 months. The fire is 2 months under the ground, and it cannot detect it clearly from the satellite. And this is in Kalimantan. The ground operation were deployed and then supported by weather modification for pit rewetting. These efforts demonstrate a strong collaboration between central and local governments, the military, and then the local community, and as well as the private sector partners. This is a good example how we monitor fire, doing ground check, and then doing the size up, suppression, and burn area calculation or estimation using satellite imagery. So you can see here that's in the 2022 that we detected some hotspot in Pesisir Selatan Regency. This is in West Sumatra province. And then the day after, we do the ground check to this area. And then we ask our Mangalagni from Jambi to deploy their personnel to this area. And then for the following weeks, we estimate the burn area in these particular locations. This from sky to the ground approach ensure data accuracy, transparency, accountability across all levels. To conclude, Indonesia approach to forest fire monitoring and management combines technology, coordination, community involvement through continuous innovations such as Sipongi, Sipkarhutla, and improved forecasting. We are building a faster, smarter, and more integrated response system. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to any question or discussion after these sessions.
Thank you so much, Israr. Really comprehensive presentation, especially the challenge to detect from remote sensing peatland fires. So we will wrap up. Thank you for being here. I think was a very extensive but very informative session. So the examples that we've seen today from different perspectives, from global perspective, national, regional perspectives, I think it's very important to have this kind of systems to monitoring and also to have reliable and accurate data, fire data, in order to also to help us, exactly what I mentioned at the beginning, to go from the reaction to proaction in terms of the fire management. So thank you all of you. Thank you for the ones that were online. It was really a pleasure. It was really a challenge to organize all of this. But thank you very much, and thank you, Tom. Thank you all.
Thank you, Duarte, panel, and colleagues online. Wonderful to have this very first ever fire monitoring session within the GFOI Plenary. It's the first, but I certainly hope not the last, the beginning of a long-standing involvement of the fire community within GFOI. It's such an important piece of the forest story, so thank you guys and ladies.